oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, for 1,000 days, the two Michaels languished in a cell of torture with no windows, no hope, and no idea of when they would be released. So, according to Global News, we learned that a Liberal member of Parliament would have privately advised a high-ranking Chinese diplomat in order to keep the two Michaels in jail, according to sources. Now, the Prime Minister should have known about this. He must have. When did he learn it, the honourable member? Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, they were the absolute priority of this government from day one. And I would say they were the priority of all Canadians and everyone in this House. We worked tirelessly for 2 years to ensure that those people who were illegally detained were returned to Canada, and everyone in this House should be convinced of that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
1,000 days, the two Michaels sat hopeless in a windowless cell, fed in doggy bowls that were slid under their door, going 8 months without seeing consular support. Yet according to Global News, a Liberal MP allegedly contacted the Chinese consulate and encouraged them to delay the release of these two Michaels for partisan Liberal gain. The intelligence services that came up with this information to the media would have told the Prime Minister. When did they tell him?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be clear. Bringing back the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, was the utmost priority of this government, of all members of this House, of all Canadians across the country. For 2 years, we've worked tirelessly to make sure that these two Michaels, which were arbitrarily detained by China, would be coming back safe home. That's what we did, and that was the only priority. Thinking otherwise is actually false.
Leader of the Opposition.
We have two members of our national security services that have told the media that a Liberal MP told the Chinese not to release the two Michaels. I've now twice asked when the Prime Minister, his office, or his department were informed of this startling revelation. So I'm going to ask a third time, and I ask the Minister to answer. When did the Prime Minister become aware of these allegations? When?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, September 24th, 2021 was a great day for Canada. It was the day when the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, came back safely home to Canada. And I think it was a day when this government, all members of this House, all Canadians were proud of what we've done, because indeed the two Michaels were arbitrarily detained for too long in China. And Mr. Speaker, this will always be our priority as a government. We will always stand up against any form of arbitrary detention in state-to-state relations.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This non-answer is extremely troubling. We have revelations from Canada's top security forces told the media that a Liberal MP asked the Chinese consulate to keep two Canadians in torture in a windowless cell. I asked already 3 times, when did the Prime Minister become aware of these revelations? I ask again, when?
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank all the members of this House that were involved in making sure that we could raise the case of the two Michaels for 2 years. Because we worked with friends and allies, different states around the world, to make sure that we could advocate their case and that on September 24th, 2021, they would be coming back here in Canada. And so in that sense, we will always stand up against any form of arbitrary detention. This is part of our priority in terms of foreign policy. In April in Toronto, we will be hosting an arbitrary detention summit because the world needs to know that what happened to the two Michaels was unacceptable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The importance of this question cannot be overstated. If the Prime Minister knew that a member of his Liberal caucus was working to keep two Canadian citizens arbitrarily and illegally incarcerated in windowless cells, potentially being tortured, he knew that and did nothing, that would be a devastating scandal against our national interest. So I am simply asking for the government to clarify. On what date did the Prime Minister find out the revelations that one of his MPs may have helped keep our people in jail?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knew very well what was happening to the two Michaels and made sure that his government would be standing up against China in the context of their arbitrary detention. And so in that sense, we will never accept any form of premise that this government and Canadians didn't work enough to bring them back home. It was our priority, and you can be convinced that it will always be our priority when it comes to any form of consular cases or any form of arbitrarily detained Canadians in this world.
L'honorable député de la...
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers were already worried about interference in the electoral system, and yesterday this went a step further regarding extremely grave allegations against a Liberal Member of Parliament. So it's not just our electoral system that's at stake, it's the trust of Canadians and Quebecers in this Parliament. It's not up to the Prime Minister to appoint his friend who might reflect on whether maybe one day he might launch a public inquiry. We need to act now, and so when is the Prime Minister going to finally launch a public, independent inquiry? It's urgent. The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we understand Canadians' concern with regard to allegations of foreign interference in our democratic institutions. And we share those concerns, and they should be shared by all members of this House of Commons. We have set up robust measures to counter foreign interference. We have strengthened these mechanisms over the past years, and the appointment of the Right Honourable David Johnston is part of these efforts to strengthen them even more. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, at first we learned that China was meddled in our elections, and then yesterday we learned that a Liberal MP advised a Chinese diplomat to act against the interests of Canadians. So we're seeing this more and more in the media. So what we're seeing is that there's still no public inquiry, and that the government appointed its friend to reflect on whether we should launch a public inquiry, whereas it is needed now. That commission of inquiry must be done because it's urgent. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to reassure this House and, of course, my colleague that the fact that we brought back Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig was always the priority of this government. And I think for everyone in this House and all Canadians, it was a priority as well. And September 24th, 2021 was a great day because finally they returned home to Canada. So we will always ensure that this is a priority, defending any Canadians who are arbitrarily detained abroad, because we will never accept any kind of arbitrary detention. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Every day new allegations come forward about political interference that erode the public's trust in our democracy. It's becoming more and more clear to the public that the Prime Minister must have known about these allegations. Communities are at risk of being stigmatized. We need to clear the air. So will the Prime Minister do the right thing and allow his MPs to vote in favor of our motion today for a transparent, independent, public inquiry, yes or no?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Leader of the NDP for his question. We obviously share his concern about the importance of not stigmatizing communities in Canada. I think all members of this House, Mr. Speaker, know that our government wants to have a respectful, nonpartisan, fact-based conversation around these allegations, around how we can work together to further reinforce our democratic institutions, to ensure that foreign interference is something that is always countered by the government. It's something that we've done, Mr. Speaker, since we formed the government, and it's something that we'll continue to do to ensure that Canadians can have confidence in our democracy.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
And the way we do everything the Minister just said is by launching a public inquiry. Les allégations publiées.
The allegations published yesterday are shocking and troubling, and it's clear that we need a public inquiry. These allegations undermine public trust in our democracy, and we have the opportunity today to do so. So will the Prime Minister allow his members to vote in favor of our motion calling for a public, transparent, and independent inquiry, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we share the concerns of the NDP leader and of all Canadians. When we need to have a discussion on these issues, nonpartisan issues based on facts, we have institutions that are already in place that do important work in this regard. We have asked the Right Honourable David Johnston, an eminent Canadian, to review the institutions that are already in place and to give us advice on any additional measures that we could take, and we are eager to see his results. Thank you.
Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Global News printed very serious allegations about a member who sits in this House. The allegations, according to two separate national security sources, state that he, quote, privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February of 2021 that Beijing should hold off freeing Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. For the sixth time today, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn of these allegations from security officials?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we take the allegations of foreign interference very seriously, which is why we have ensured that our national security agencies have all of the powers, authorities, but with the corresponding transparency that is required to reinforce the confidence of Canadians in our institutions. Mr. Speaker, at every stage, Canadians can be confident that we are protecting our institutions. Canadians can be confident that we are protecting our elections. And Mr. Speaker, above all, Canadians can be assured of the fact that this government worked 24/7 to ensure the return of the two Michaels back to Canada, and that is something that we did.
Well, Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the allegations from two separate national security sources state that a member in this House privately advised Beijing officials to hold off freeing two Canadian hostages held captive for over 1,000 days. After all of the new evidence Canadians have learned on election interference, it would be difficult for them to believe that security sources told Global News about the Liberal member's actions without anyone trying to inform the Prime Minister. So I'll ask for the seventh time today. On what day did the Prime Minister first learn of these allegations against a member of his own caucus?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I assure my colleague that this government has set up the appropriate mechanisms to deal with the allegations with regards to foreign interference in our elections through the creation of NCICA, through the creation of NCIRA, and now through the appointment of Mr. David Johnston, who was initially appointed by Stephen Harper, a former Conservative Prime Minister, an eminent Canadian who possesses the qualifications, the experience in the law, and the wisdom to help us navigate around the important challenges of foreign interference. But no member in this chamber should have any doubt whatsoever as to the way in which we are protecting our institutions and ensure the return of the two Michaels to Canada.
The honourable member for Brantford-Brant.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence is mounting. Every day we are finding new pieces to the foreign interference puzzle. Just yesterday, new allegations were revealed which led to the resignation of a long-standing member of the Liberal caucus. We will continue to ask questions until Canadians get a straightforward answer. Now, for the 8th consecutive time, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn of these serious and troubling allegations?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, since we took the reins of government, we have raised the bar of transparency through the creation of the National Security Intelligence Review Agency, through the creation of the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that sees parties work across the partisan aisle, and now with the most recent appointment of David Johnston as an independent expert who will look into these questions to reassure Canadians that they can have confidence in our institutions, in our elections, in our defense of human rights, which manifested in a campaign to see the two Michaels return to Canada. That is something that every member of this chamber and all Canadians can be confident in.
Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, new serious allegations about foreign interference in federal elections led to a high-profile resignation from the Liberal caucus, a caucus member who the Prime Minister has staunchly defended. We have already asked it 8 times today. I'll give them a 9th time to answer. On what day did the Prime Minister first learn of these troubling allegations?
The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary.
Speaker, I'm happy to answer the question from my colleague from Miramichi, New Brunswick. As has been said on many occasions in this House, Mr. Speaker, we think Canadians benefit from a nonpartisan, fact-based conversation about these very serious issues. We know the Conservative Party is seeking to turn this issue into a partisan circus. Mr. Speaker, what we're trying to do is reassure Canadians that we have a robust system to protect our democratic institutions. Our government has taken these allegations seriously since we formed office, and the Right Honourable David Johnston is the right person to give us ideas on the next steps to reinforce.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, day after day, there are new questions about what this Prime Minister knows about Beijing's interference. Yesterday, it was reported, based on national security sources, that a Liberal MP advised Beijing's Toronto Consul General that the two Michaels languish in a Communist Party jail because somehow their release would benefit the Conservatives. This is about as serious as it gets. The Prime Minister needs to come clean. For the 10th time, when did the Prime Minister learn of these allegations?
Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to making sure that the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, would be coming home, it was this government's utmost priority for 2 years. The Prime Minister, Foreign Affairs Ministers have been heavily involved. All members of Cabinet talking to counterparts from around the world, thinking that, or even alluding to the fact that this was not the case, is absolutely false.
Right.
And we hope that all members in this House were convinced that we were working together to make sure to bring them back home.
Hear, hear.
Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, again, for the 11th time, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn about the allegation that a Liberal MP suggested to Han Tao, the PRC's Consul General in Toronto, that the PRC delay the release of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Speaker, we will continue to be transparent with Canadians when it comes to the ways in which we are fighting foreign interference through the collaboration of all parties in the NCCOP, through accountability of NCIRA, and now through the appointment of David Johnston, an eminent Canadian previously appointed by Stephen Harper, a Conservative Prime Minister, someone who will lay out the next practical steps, including and up to a public inquiry, so that all Canadians can be confident that we are protecting our institutions, but no one should doubt, not for a single single moment that we did everything in our power to secure the return of the 2 Canadians. It was the right thing to do. Those 2 Michaels are back home, and that is something that should be celebrated by all members in this chamber.
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, we know that the Ontario Premier Doug Ford was warned by CSIS that there was alleged Chinese interference in the last provincial election. And we even know that this interference targeted Don Valley North, the same riding represented by the federal Liberal MP who was targeted by the allegations in Global News yesterday. We know this because Mr. Ford said so publicly. Was the Prime Minister notified by CSIS that it was discussing potential foreign interference in the Ontario elections with Doug Ford? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we have been saying for many months now, allegations of foreign interference are not just at the federal level. Democratic institutions in the provinces were surely also targeted by this activity. Currently, in the context of federal elections, we are continuing to have discussions with the provincial premiers. I myself had a discussion with Doug Ford regarding the strengthening of democratic institutions, and we offered the provincial governments access to officials and information so that they can strengthen their democracy. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, we also know that the outgoing Mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, discussed with CSIS potential Chinese interference in elections, in their municipal elections, because he too said so publicly. Was the Prime Minister notified by CS that Chinese interference was alleged to have happened in these elections? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have said many times, and I said so before the PROC committee a few weeks ago, we are updated regularly with regard to foreign interference in elections, and we have offered provincial authorities briefings and access to senior officials who are responsible for our intelligence agencies for the very reason we want them to understand this threat that is constantly evolving and to take the necessary measures in their jurisdictions to do what we have done, that is strengthening their democratic institutions. Mr. Speaker, if we sum up, CSIS spoke openly with municipalities about Chinese interference and with the provinces, but they would have us believe that the CSIS doesn't let the federal government know. Apparently, it's only through the media that the Prime Minister knew that one of his members had personal diplomatic ties with Beijing. So either CSIS tells the Prime Minister everything except for what's happening in his own backyard, or CSIS talks with everyone except the federal government. So what should we believe? When will a public inquiry be launched? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that CSIS officials speak regularly with federal government authorities to advise them on how to better strengthen their democratic institutions, and that's exactly what we've been doing since we came to power. The appointment of the Right Honourable David Johnston is a measure that is more focused on how to strengthen our democratic institutions. We have constantly acknowledged the threat of foreign interference, and we've taken measures to counter it. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, there were very troubling allegations published against an MP sitting in this House. They are from two separate sources. It says that he privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February 2021 to delay the release of the 2 Michaels. I'm asking the same question that has been asked 11 times today. When did the Prime Minister know about these allegations regarding national security? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said many times in this House, the 2 Michaels were the absolute priority of our government, of the Prime Minister, of a number of foreign affairs ministers, and all the members of this chamber. And we worked with a number of counterparts across the globe to support the 2 Michaels and to put pressure on China to get to the great outcome of September 24th, 2021, when these two arbitrarily detained Michaels came back home. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the minister doesn't understand, because the question is simple. The allegations are serious. The government's lack of response is very eye-opening. So for the 13th time today, I'm going to ask a simple question that requires a very simple response. When did the Prime Minister learn of the serious allegations that were revealed yesterday by Global News? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what my colleague opposite needs to understand is that the fact that we brought the two Michaels home was our priority, the priority of this government, and saying anything otherwise is absolutely false. So I am answering the question. I reject the premise of the question, which is that the government of Canada and all Canadians did not work hard to make sure that these two arbitrarily detained Michaels got back home, because it was. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I have a great deal of difficulty believing that the national security officials would have deliberately informed the media about such a sensitive topic before having informed the Prime Minister. Once again, Globe and Mail said this Liberal MP was already investigated by CSIS, according to 3 different sources, about election interference because of his ties with the Chinese consulate. Now, we have asked this question 13 times. When did the Prime Minister learn about these serious allegations? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague knows full well we think that Canadians would benefit from a nonpartisan, factual discussion that are part of institutions that we have already set up. When we came to power, we set up a national security committee of parliamentarians. We appointed the Right Honourable David Johnston last year to give us advice as to any additional measures that we can take. Obviously, we will follow his recommendations in a public and transparent fashion.
South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, just days after the Prime Minister met with President Biden in 2021, the U.S. announced they were doubling the duties on softwood lumber. Workers in communities that rely on Canada's forest industry are hoping for better this time. The WTO agrees we need a better deal. So, is a softwood lumber deal on the agenda with the President? And will the billions in excess duties collected finally be returned to the forest industry?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for that important question. He and I had a good conversation about this the other day. To the forestry sector, I've been very clear. We will always stand up for them, always stand up for their workers. With respect to this issue, we've always said that we are ready to be at the table to negotiate, but we want a good deal, not just any deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. The honourable member for Nunavut.
The climate emergency and foreign actors are threatening Canada's Arctic sovereignty and the rights of Indigenous peoples in the North. Meanwhile, the Canadian Rangers who know the lands they serve in have been failed by this government. A stronger relationship with the U.S. means more predictability, resources, and hopefully more supports for Canadian Rangers. Will this government work with the United States to ensure Canadian Rangers are equipped with the tools and more efficient supports they need to help keep Northerners safe?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whether it's search and rescue, domestic operations, or training of fellow CAF members, Canadian Rangers provide key support to Canadians when and where needed. The CAF recognizes that Rangers need to replace personal items quickly because Rangers, and often their community, require them for daily tasks and functions. The CAF has recently streamlined the compensation process. This will expedite the process for Rangers to receive the reimbursements. Our government is committed to ensuring that CAF members always have the tools they need to do their job.
Honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been working hard to bring significant investments to Canada to create good jobs in Kitchener-Conestoga and throughout our nation to support our priority of creating a greener economy. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry update this House on the exciting news that was announced regarding Volkswagen and how this will strengthen Southwest Ontario's and Canada's electric vehicle battery ecosystem?
Minister of Innovation.
Thank my colleague from Kitchener-Conestoga for a great question, Mr. Speaker. Bringing Volkswagen in Canada is a home run for the country, Mr. Speaker. It is the first manufacturer that we bring in our country in 35 years, and it's the first time that we bring a European manufacturer in Canada, Mr. Speaker. This is a huge vote of confidence for Canada. It's a huge vote of confidence for auto sector, and it's a huge vote of confidence for talented auto workers across this nation, Mr. Speaker. Canada can win big, and that's another example.
The honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Yesterday, the Global News printed very serious allegations about a member that sits in this House. The allegations, according to two separate national security sources, stated that, quote, privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February of 2021 that Beijing should hold off freeing Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. For the 15th time today, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn of these allegations from security officials?
Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that this government has set up the appropriate mechanisms to be transparent and upfront with Canadians in the ways in which we are protecting our institutions, including our elections, from any allegations of foreign interference. We've had two independent panels made up of nonpartisan, professional public servants verify that the elections were free and fair in 2019 and 2021. And now we have appointed an eminent Canadian in David Johnston to map out the next steps so that we can continue that work. That is something that we will do transparently with Canadians as well. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, these non-answers are eroding public trust in our democracy. And the allegations from two separate national security sources state that a member in this House privately advised Beijing officials to hold off freeing Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, two Canadians that were held captive for 1,000 days. For the 16th time now, on what date did the Prime Minister first learn about these allegations against a member of this caucus, of his caucus?
The Honourable Minister for Parliamentary Affairs.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we think what erodes Canadians' confidence is the continued attempt to seek partisan advantage from what is a very serious national security issue, one that our government has taken very seriously. Mr. Speaker, autocratic regimes around the world, including China, want to weaken democratic institutions in countries like Canada. And these kind of irresponsible partisan discussions do not advance the interests of ensuring that Canadians have confidence in our democratic institutions. There are nonpartisan, fact-based ways to get these answers and this reassurance. That's exactly what our government is doing.
The honourable member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, this is very serious and is not partisan, and shame on that member for saying so. The allegations in Global News yesterday were very, very disturbing. Two national security sources say that a Liberal MP advised Beijing to keep the two Michaels locked up to suffer for partisan political gain. That MP has now resigned from the Liberal caucus. Canadians deserve to know the truth, but even more, the two Michaels and their families deserve to know the truth. For the 17th time today, I ask, and please tell us on what date the Prime Minister learned of these horrendous allegations.
Rather incredulous that my colleague across the aisle says that the Conservatives have not partaken in any partisanship. What do they say with the attacks that they made against Mr. Johnston? somebody who was appointed by Stephen Harper? What do they say when they attacked my colleague, the Minister for Global Affairs, appearing at committee for doing her job, which included working around the clock to see the return of the two Michaels? Those are examples of partisanship. It's the Conservatives who should reverse course and unite behind the cause of protecting our institutions. That is precisely what this government will continue to do.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Lizette Chemin-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, we get the feeling that there's new news coming out every day. Yesterday, what we learned was troubling. A Liberal MP is subject to allegations. These are national and serious allegations. The Canadians have the duty to be informed, and for the 18th time, when did the Prime Minister, when did he learn about these troubling allegations? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yes, Mr. Speaker, Canadians have the right to be informed. They were informed for 2 years about how this was the priority of our government to bring back 2 Canadians who were arbitrarily detained in China, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. For 2 years, people across our country were clear. It was their priority and our biggest priority, the priority of all members of this House. So the premise of the question that is being asked by our Conservative colleague, well, at all times, the question of bringing the 2 Michaels back was the priority of our Liberal government. The honourable member for Martinville. Mr. Speaker, Global News is alleging that a Liberal MP advised the Chinese Council to hold off the release of 2 Michaels imprisoned in China. This in itself would be serious enough, but what should concern us most is that the PMO apparently found out about it from the newspapers. The Prime Minister is said to have fallen off his chair, yet CSIS warned him as early as 2019 about the close ties between this MP and the Council, and this was before the MP was even elected. How is it possible that the MP could have continued to have unrestricted access to Chinese diplomacy? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my friend from Montarville for his question. It allows me to remind the House that we believe that the best way to reassure Canadians with respect to robust measures that are in place and the efforts of our government to continuously strengthen these measures is to have a nonpartisan fact-based discussion, and that is exactly what the Right Honourable David Johnston has already started to do. His work is important, and he will table before the end of May a report that will show us the direction to take, and we are waiting for direction from his report. The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knew about the close ties between this MP and the Council. CSIS warned him back in 2019, and he did nothing. Yesterday, Global News revealed that this MP allegedly used his ties to try and influence Beijing to favour the Liberal Party, even if it meant putting 2 Canadian citizens at risk. The PM was at best naive, and his MP would have taken advantage of that. This completely disqualifies the government from selecting the rules of the inquiry into Chinese interference. When will there be a public and independent inquiry? This is urgent. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague from Montarville knows full well the efforts that our government has made to build nonpartisan institutions such as NSICOP, which focuses on national security issues. In fact, my colleague sits on this important parliamentary committee. It's a forum, amongst others, where we can have informed, fact-based discussions that are nonpartisan. To reassure Canadians, like we've always done, we take these issues seriously. We have measures in place to counter foreign interference, and we'll continue in that direction.
Peterborough Kawartha.
One question. We have asked one question 18 times. This question, if not answered, threatens the core of our Canadian democracy. It is time to stop disrespecting this House. These allegations are as serious as it gets. Over 1,000 days, the 2 Michaels waited in a cell wondering if they would ever see their family again. So we ask again, on what day did this Prime Minister know of these horrendous and disturbing allegations of a Liberal MP who told the PRC consulate that to leave them in their cell?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
We had an inquiry with Justice Iacobucci and Justice O'Connor with Canadians that were wrongfully detained and other circumstances. There were a set of recommendations that were asked to be acted upon. Unfortunately, they weren't acted upon by the prior government. They were acted upon by this government. But, Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. When we're talking about what is at the very core of our democracy, I think we can all be united that there are autocratic regimes right now that are looking to destabilize Western democracies. They seek us to undermine that democracy by engaging in partisan games on things like national security. It's inappropriate. It's important that we deal with these matters in a judicious, fact-based way.
Well said. Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, allegations emerged that a Liberal MP urged Beijing to not release the two Michaels. The ministers here today so far are evading being honest with Canadians. For the 20th time today, on what date did the Prime Minister first hear about these serious allegations reported in the media?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, when we are dealing with something as serious and as fundamental as foreign interference in our democracy, how we engage in those conversations, how we talk to one another is exceptionally important. What we have said from the onset is we have NSICOP, which allows members from all parties to look into every aspect, every corner of government on all of these issues. We have further appointed an eminent expert who was appointed, in fact, by the Conservative government to be Governor General to look at these issues, whose commitment to our democracy is impeccable, who will make recommendations on the next step. We have to be careful in throwing around allegations as though they are fact. Instead, we need to be judicious in how we deal with these matters.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Lislet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, the premise of my question is a fact. Yesterday's allegations with respect to a member of the Liberal caucus are so important and serious that Canadians need to know the truth. This affects our democratic institutions and our national security. For the 21st time, when was the PM informed of these allegations with respect to a member of his caucus? On what date? The Honourable Minister of National Security. Mr. Speaker, this government always takes such issues very seriously with respect to foreign interference, and that is why we've already offered all authorities with respect to these issues great transparency. With the creation of a committee of parliamentarians and now with the appointment of Mr. Johnston, who will give recommendations, and then the government will respect Mr. Johnston's recommendations. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, many Canadians are suffering from rare diseases that affect their quality of life and that of their families. Amongst these rare diseases is sickle cell anemia. It is a hereditary and incurable blood disorder that affects many people in Black communities. Can the Minister of Health tell us more about his important announcements? The Honourable Minister of Health, I'd like to thank this member for his hard work and his presence yesterday when there was an important announcement made in Montreal for the first ever national drug strategy for rare diseases, supported by an investment of $1.5 billion over 3 years to help Canadians with rare diseases. Thanks to this strategy, thousands of Canadians, young and old, will have access to better screening and diagnosis and affordable and effective treatments that they need, regardless of where they live. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, all day today, this Liberal government and Liberal members have said they want to have a fact-based discussion. Well, we're only asking for one fact, and it's a very simple fact. When was the Prime Minister briefed on these deeply troubling allegations about a member from the Liberal caucus that has now resigned? We've asked for this simple fact now for the 22nd time. Why won't they answer this simple, fact-based question?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, by now my colleague will have heard that the answer to that question lies in the mandate that has been provided to Mr. Johnson, who will look into all of the allegations in relationship to the allegations around 2019 and 2021 elections. But I also want to assure my member that 2 independent panels have verified that those elections were free and fair. And now Mr. Johnston will put forward recommendations up to and including a public inquiry, which this government will respect, so that we can reinforce the confidence of Canadians in all of our institutions, most especially our elections.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister had to be briefed on this. He absolutely had to be briefed. That is unequivocal. And for 22 questions today, they've refused to answer the question. So let's ask ourselves, why won't they answer it? They won't answer it because the answer to this question is so damaging to this Prime Minister and so damaging to this Liberal government that they will continue to obfuscate. For the 23rd time, simple fact question. When was the Prime Minister briefed?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, this is why we don't play with national security using partisan theater. Because, Mr. Speaker, the member just stood in his place, as we've heard many times, them talk about allegations as if they are fact and saying that things must be true and that they know things that, of course, Mr. Speaker, they couldn't possibly know. And what we have said throughout this process is that when we're dealing with national security, when we're dealing with foreign autocracies trying to undermine our democracy, that we need to have the maturity to allow our institutions and process to answer these questions as opposed to play this out in partisan theater.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, Canadians witnessed a government that refuses to tell the truth about specific facts and troubling facts. For the 24th time, we're going to ask the question so that Canadians can have clear and precise information. When did the Prime Minister learn about the allegations that were published yesterday in Global News, saying that a Liberal MP sought to delay the release of the 2 Michaels for partisan reasons? When was the PM informed of this sad reality? The Honourable Minister. With all due respect from my colleague, the government created not 1, but 2, but 3 independent processes and nonpartisan processes with the objective of increasing and enhancing the level of transparency. With all the examples we've had to fight against foreign interference. And now we are looking forward to receiving recommendations from Mr. Johnson, an eminent Canadian who is highly qualified to do good work. Thank you.
For Mississauga-Malton.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I have heard from constituents about the ongoing mass suspension of internet services in Punjab, India. Canadians have family and friends that are visiting Punjab who do not have access to the internet. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs update this House on the ongoing situation?
Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague from Mississauga-Malton for his important question. We appreciate his concerns and those of many members in this House. We are aware of the evolving situation in Punjab, and we are following it very closely. And we look forward to a return to a more stable situation, and you can always count on the Government of Canada to make sure that we will continue to address the concerns of many members of the community. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
Generations of Métis and First Nations children were stolen from their homes and forced to attend Canada's horrific residential schools, including the Isle Lacrosse Residential School in Saskatchewan. But despite the violence, terror, and neglect experienced, survivors have been denied the justice, recognition, and compensation they deserve. Instead of breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma, the Liberals are fighting the survivors in court. Shameful. When will this government finally commit to justice for the Isle Lacrosse Residential School survivors before it's too late?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, it is a disgrace that these survivors have not been compensated up to now. Clearly, and I sat down with a number of them this summer at Batoche and had the opportunity to hear the pain that they continue to be going through, are re-triggered by a number of the settlements that we're achieving across Canada. But these survivors deserve justice. Unfortunately, the government of Saskatchewan has not acted up to this date, and it needs to be at the table with us. These were administered by the government of Saskatchewan. It needs to be held accountable. Reconciliation is not only the job of the federal government, which is to be held to account, but for all levels of government, and we need the government of Saskatchewan to stand up.
Hear, hear, Mark.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, on December 2nd and February 15th, I questioned the government about a 30-year-old tax law that penalizes Canadian companies such as Zenit Nutrition, despite the fact that they only use local and healthy products. Following my questions, a minister and a parliamentary secretary offered their help. The problem is that I didn't hear back from them, not even acknowledgement of receipt of my question. Meanwhile, these entrepreneurial people are fighting multinationals and just want to be able to compete on a level playing field. Why don't the Liberals take the time to listen to them? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, tax evasion for our government has always been a priority. We've invested billions in this, and it will be a pleasure to work with my colleague to able to give him answers. Thank you.
C'est tout le temps.
That's all the time we have today for question period.
And we have